Hi everyone, my name is Destiny Chapa and my pronouns are she, her, hers. My topic today is intimate partner violence. Before I begin, I would like to put a trigger warning on this topic because it is a painful subject, so please proceed with caution going forward. The number on this slide is the intimate partner violence hotline. Anyways, enjoy. To begin, what is intimate partner violence? IPV is the shortened version of intimate partner violence, which is also known as domestic violence. It is a serious social and health issue. This results in long-term physical and psychological harm, especially for women and their children. It has also been described as behavior within an intimate relationship that causes or has the potential to cause physical, sexual, or psychological harm, including acts of physical aggression, sexual coercion, psychological abuse, and controlling behaviors. Why is IPV important? On average, nearly 20 people per minute are a victim of IPV in the United States. That equates to more than 10 million men and women in 1 year. These victims not only endure physical abuse, but emotional and mental abuse that can occur daily. This topic is important to learn because there must be more awareness on how IPV can affect the victims and their life around them. Because of this, I argue that victims of intimate partner violence are more likely to experience the inability to work, homelessness, and cause long-term negative effects for their children due to exposure of intimate partner violence. Victims of IPV encounter life-lasting consequences such as creating issues in the workplace. Victims of IPV do not have anywhere safe to go from their abuser, so they tend to become homeless, and victims of IPV unconsciously make their children grow up with possible mental health and societal issues as they grow older. To begin with academic journals, this one highlights IPV and how it affects work. The inability to work for a victim of violence enhances fear in the household and financial stress. If the victim were to be fired from their workplace, this destroys their safety net and makes them completely dependent on their abuser. A study conducted by Pamela C. Alexander in 2011 examined the long-term effects of intimate partner violence and work interference on women's employment specifically. There was a study conducted of 135 housed or homeless women. Among these women, 66% of them had experienced IPV. It was also reported that a lifetime of intimate partner violence caused women to no longer look for jobs because they knew their abusive partner would ruin it for them. Alexander noted that the need for trauma-informed services for unemployed and/or homeless women must be highlighted. Next, the effects of IPV and homelessness. A study by Charlene K. Baker examines the current state of subsequent homelessness among victims and on women's ability to achieve economic stability after separating from their abusive parents. She conducted a study of transitional housing programs in 15 states. The programs were selected from states that were used as primary sampling areas by the National Survey of Homeless Assistance Providers and Clients. Some of the criteria needed to be eligible for these programs are 1. Having dependent children, 2. History of intimate partner violence, and 3. Being currently and completely homeless. The study showed transitional housing programs share many attributes, including limited choices for women on where to live based on their funding sources, eligibility requirements, and services offered. The Violence Against Women Act, or considered VAWA, of 2005 focuses on safe and independent housing for survivors of intimate partner violence. VAWA suggests to Congress that removing barriers and increasing access to safe housing is critical for intimate partner violence victims. In regard to children witnessing domestic violence firsthand, up to 8 million American children witness domestic violence every year. Since this discovery, the authors expanded an existing research by examining how youth exposed to domestic violence perceive their experiences, behaviors, and coping mechanisms. Like Baker's study previously, this research was conducted at a housing program. The program that was used was a Domestic Violence Housing Program, or DVHP, that served approximately 20 female domestic violence survivors and their children. Participant observation were conducted with children 10 to 17 years old. Children in this study believed that their advocates saw them as damaged goods due to their domestic violence exposure. When these angry emotions and aggressive behaviors came out, this program may turn the youth around before it's too late. The authors conducted 1 hour interviews with 9 of the participants. They were open-ended questions like, have you changed since you saw the abuse? And what do you think about the person who abused your mom? They resisted the staff's attempts to reduce their behaviors and issues to the youth's previous exposure to domestic violence. This kind of thing shows that they might have issues along the way when they grow up due to societal issues or mental issues that might stay with them long term. It is now time to switch over to the media and what they think of IPV. Soraya Shamali, a writer for HuffPost, discusses the inequality women face. She says, violence against women in the United States costs roughly $4.9 billion a year in medical expenses, lost work time, productivity, and loss of lifetime earnings. She also states, intimate partner abuse frequently includes deliberate attempts to sabotage women's economic independence by targeting women's reputations to specifically hurt them professionally. It is clear that the abuse that so many women live with can constantly interrupt work or school and degrade a person's chances of getting a job, raises, promotions, and benefits. When they try to leave, their situations spiral into greater instability and harm. This leads women down the trail of pure dependency and homelessness if they leave. As COVID-19 is among us in 2020, Holly McKay wrote an article for Fox News regarding the uprising of women and children at higher risk of violence and sexual abuse among lockdown and quarantine. Emergency calls for domestic violence disturbances and violence grew on average between 10 and 30% over the past few weeks due to COVID-19 and the quarantine. The National Domestic Violence Hotline currently receives around 2,000 calls per day, which is relatively steady for them, but they believe the reasoning is because the victims are always so close to their abusers, it is dangerous to reach out for support. In addition to COVID-19, the pandemic led to the early release of thousands of inmates, and this has triggered thousands of abuse survivors by reliving their worst nightmare. This is very damaging to victims, survivors, and children. Leah Goodmark is a professor, an anti-violence activist, and a writer for the New York Times. In her article, she discusses how intimate partner violence should be included in criminal justice reforms. The push for more vigorous law enforcement gained momentum with the Violence Against Women Act, Taravawa again, in 1994. Intimate partner violence has many of the same characteristics that have driven criminal justice reform across other areas, so it needs to start being presented as such. To compare and contrast academic journals and media articles, they both show the same kind of care and desire to spread awareness about IPV. To explain, both the academic journals and media articles seem to have a goal to make IPV a serious issue and spread awareness to society that these issues are going on every day. I was somewhat worried that the media would make a mockery of IPV or say that it was not a big deal, but they didn't insinuate anything like that. In contrast, academic journals clearly show more validity in research studies, so they contain more information and reliable data. The media has data and statistics too, but not of their own, so the validity is questionable. And here are my references. Thank you for your time and stay safe.